My name is Kelly McGee, and I chose to do this project on RethinkDB. So first of all, what is RethinkDB? RethinkDB is an open source database that was created in response to some pain points of using traditional databases with real-time web apps. From rethinkdb.com, RethinkDB is the first open source, scalable database designed specifically to push data to applications in real time. What is RethinkDB good for? As I mentioned before, RethinkDB was specifically designed to work well for applications that require real-time updating. Some specific examples include instant messaging applications, such as Slack, collaborative web and mobile apps, streaming analytics apps, multiplayer games, real-time marketplaces, and connected devices. Each of these examples need to have data continuously updated at all times. While this can be accomplished with databases such as traditional SQL databases, it can be very cumbersome and problematic. In a traditional real-time architecture, there is some sort of a message queue connecting the application servers to each other. The problem this presents is that it is hard to know who has the most current information. Is it the database, is it the message queue, or perhaps one of the application servers? This architecture provides real-time updates by constantly polling the database, meaning that for each piece of information that needs to be updated in real time, the same query must be run against the database over and over and over again. You can imagine this process being very cumbersome. RethinkDB handles these problems by having the database push updates to the servers rather than having the servers continuously poll the database. This eliminates the need for a message queue, as well as the need for the application servers to talk to each other. Instead, each application server talks directly to the database, and rather than constantly sending the same query to the database will let the application servers know when a change has been made to relevant data. This is accomplished through subscribing to a change feed. These change feeds are essentially queries, but rather than asking for that information from the server at a specific point in time, the server is asking the database to notify it if the value of the response to that query ever changes. For example, let's say you have a table in your database called clients. This table contains a record for every client of your business. Your application server needs to have a current list of clients. You would simply subscribe to a change feed on the client table. Anytime a record in this table was added, deleted, or modified, the database would return two objects to the cursor, old val and new val. Change feeds are very simple to subscribe to, which I will demonstrate in just a moment, and can be customized to exactly the information needed by a specific application server. Now let's take a look at how you would actually implement this. RethinkDB does not use SQL for its queries. Instead, the founders created their own language called REQL. It may seem like a hassle to learn a new language to create queries, but the creators designed this language to be very intuitive. There are three main principles governing the REQL language. First, it was designed to embed into your programming language. This means that you don't need to create strings or JSON objects in order to query the database. Instead, you call methods within your programming language. RethinkDB has official support for JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and Java, and there are community-supported drivers for 17 other languages. In my examples, I will be using JavaScript. So let's say you wanted to create a table called Gus. Using SQL, you would need to create a string that said create table Gus. You would then pass to the database. Using REQL, your code would look like this. Let's break this down. In this example, R is a variable referring to the database. Table create is a RethinkDB method we are calling to create a table in the database represented by R. Gus is a table. Run is a method that sends the statement to the server to be executed. And con is the connection to the database. One major benefit of using this type of syntax rather than SQL is that there is no danger of string injection attacks since you're not dealing with strings. The second principle of REQL is that all REQL queries are chainable. For example, if you wanted to get all records from a table, you would simply type r.tablegus.runCon. However, let's say you only wanted the first names from this table. You would simply chain the first name property on using the pluck command. Suppose you wanted to get more specific. Maybe you only want unique first names from this table. You can chain that on as well using the distinct command. The majority of RethinkDB operations can be chained in the same way. Just keep adding on until the query is returning the information you need it to. The third principle of REQL is that it is designed to be very efficient. Once the run command is called, the query gets sent to the database server and all processing happens there before being returned to the client. In addition, RethinkDB will perform only enough work as it needs to. Once the query has been satisfied, RethinkDB will stop processing the query so it is not using unnecessary processing power. Now let's go back to change feeds for a minute. All you need to do to subscribe to a change feed is to chain the changes command onto your query. Looking at the example from before, if you wanted the database to notify your app whenever there is a change to the unique first names in the Gus table, you would simply change the code to r.tablegus.pluck_firstname.distinct.changes.run.con. Anytime a change was made that affected the results of this query, an object would be returned to the cursor. Let's say we added the record shown to the Gus table. This record has a first name of B and a last name of Buttersnaps. Adding this record to the table will add a new unique first name, which will trigger the change feed. The database will send an object to the cursor with two properties: old val, which in this case will be set to null since this record did not exist before, and new val, which in this case will contain the fields we just added. Now let's look at a simple example. We're going to go to the RethinkDB UI to see a change feed live. So this is the RethinkDB UI, and we're going to go to Data Explorer across the top, and this will bring up a console that we can work with. So first of all, we're going to create a database to work with. So with that, we're just going to do r.db create, and we will call this pineapple. Let's go ahead and run that. And you have to spell it right. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. And as you can see, we have the change values in here. So old val is set to null, and the new val, it gives it an ID, and then it has the name that we gave it. So next, we're going to do a table to work with. So with that, we're just going to identify that we want to work with the pineapple database. And then we're going to do table create, and we'll call this table Gus. And we click run. And as you can see, it has created a table named Gus, and it has a few other things that it just sets to default values. All right, so now to actually see the change feed, we're going to go to a new window where I just have, again, just the RethinkDB UI up and the Data Explorer tab, and we're just going to type r.db, and we're again identifying that we're working with the pineapple database and the Gus table. And then we're just going to do .changes, and scroll over here, but we're going to run this, and as you can see, it's now listening for events here. So we'll go back to this other screen, and we're just going to add a couple of records to the Gus table. So actually, I guess most of this I could have kept. We're going to and work with the pineapple database and the Gus table. And then we're just going to do .insert, and we're going to put in a couple of different objects just for fun. So first of all, let's do one with the first name, Lavender, and the last name, then we'll do another one where we'll have the first name, Yasmin, and the last name, Leith. Then one more, we'll just do the first name, Long Branch. And the last name, Penny Whistle. All right, and then let's make sure we close off everything. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and click run over here, And as you can see, it's gone through and put those into the table. And then if we go over to this place where we're listening for the events, it has the change feeds for each of those items. So that's how the change feed works. So obviously this is just a really simple example of RethinkDB, but to learn more about RethinkDB and what you can do with it, just visit rethinkdb.com and they have a lot of information there.